But it's not just liberalism. It's also some fundamentalism. You've probably heard the slogan, "No creed but Christ." No creed but Christ. That's the same attack on thinking. We make the person of Christ, not a creed, the object of faith. We make the person of Christ and not a creed the object of faith. The neo-orthodoxy, which developed as a reaction to liberalism in the early part of the 20th century. Liberalism was characterized by a de-emphasis on the supernatural, a denial of miracles. Neo-orthodoxy came along and said, we're going to restore the emphasis on the supernatural. And the neo-orthodox theologians such as Karl Barth and Emil Brunner, were very much influenced by Kierkegaard. And religion became a matter of subjectivity, not a matter of doctrine or opinion or ideas or understanding or judgment. Roman Catholicism has a doctrine of implicit faith, which says that, in essence, ignorance is the height of godliness. It's the attitude that a devout Roman Catholic believes whatever the church believes, whatever the church teaches. He has implicit faith in the church. He doesn't know what the church teaches, but that's okay. He has implicit faith in whatever the church teaches. It's a premium put on ignorance. That's a form of attack on thinking. And finally, there's a group I'll call the neo-romantics. These people have picked up on some of the themes of the earlier romantics and introduced them even into reform circles. Some of these, what shall we say, transmission belts were people like C.S. Lewis, Dorothy Sayers, a neo-romantic view. Douglas Wilson has a view that he calls poetic epistemology. He denies that language is literal, that any language is literal. He asserts that all language is metaphorical. If that's the case, of course, the debate over whether the word day in Genesis 1 is literal or metaphor is settled. It's metaphorical. But of course, it's a contradictory position. In order for him to espouse that point of view, he wants us to understand him literally, not metaphorically. But he espouses a poetic epistemology. In his most recent book, or one of his recent books, he has a chapter on the great logic fraud. Now, he's a co-author of a logic textbook, but he talks about that in that chapter. And he says, all that good work in that book is my co-author's work. It's not mine. I don't believe in this stuff. And the title of the essay is The Great Logic Fraud. And it's an attack on precision. It's an attack on analysis. It's an attack on logical processes. And it comes out of this neo-romantic movement, this poetic epistemology. We find it in other figures in the church. Here's a liberal churchman, William Marshall Urban, who also held the view that all language is metaphorical. He wrote about communion. This is what Urban said about communion in his book, Language and Reality. Holy Communion is a simple piece of symbolism to express a number of spiritual truths too great for ordinary language. The symbol expresses something too great for words. This is life is deeper than logic, put into religious language. Holy Communion is a simple piece of symbolism to express a number of spiritual truths too great for ordinary language. The symbol expresses something too great for words. There's nothing too great for words. In the beginning was the Word. And this reaction against the Word is profoundly anti-Christian and profoundly subversive. Life is not deeper than logic. Logic is deeper than life. We are not Darwinians. We do not believe logic is a recent appearance on the planet. We think that logic steers the universe. In fact, it created the universe. In the beginning was the logic, and the logic was with God, and the logic was God. Perfectly good translation of John 1:1. If you like the word word, use the word word. If you like the word wisdom, that's a perfectly good translation. But to assert that there is something that cannot be expressed in words is stupid. And it is subversive of Christianity. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word. Not the deed, not the symbol, not the activity, not the feeling, the Word. And a word is an expression of thought. And it is thought that controls the universe. Nothing else. Nothing else. That is why we find in the Scriptures, we saw in the first hour, 1,400 occurrences of the word no. That is why we find a command that says, love the Lord your God with your mind, with your heart, for emphasis. Those are not two different things. The first and greatest commandment is a command to do something with your mind. Well, there are other ways that this attack on thinking has been introduced into Reformed churches. I happened to be in a Presbyterian church in Georgia a few weeks ago, and I was standing outside the nursery, and they had a little game for the kids to play there, and they thought it was necessary to put on the box there, being smart is okay. Being smart is okay. Of course it's okay. But they thought it necessary to say that. Being smart is okay. I think that reflects something about the culture. There's also another way that, let me move on down to popular culture here. There's another way this attack is carried out. It's carried out in the name of art. Art. Painting or sculpture or something of that sort. Art displaced religion. Art displaced religion, or doctrine, I should say, in the churches a long time ago. It displaced the doctrine in the Roman Catholic and the Orthodox churches over 1,000 years ago. Aesthetics became a major concern. And today we have the same emphasis on art and aesthetics showing up in the form of concern with liturgy. We have a different variety of it showing up in the concern for entertainment in the churches, both of which are equally opposed to doctrine, both of which are equally opposed to understanding. Whether we try to work up our feelings of awe, or whether we try to whip up our feelings of joy and be entertained, both of them are opposed to thinking in church. In advertising, a few years ago, there was a beer ad on television, profoundly anti-intellectual. Why? Ask why. Maybe some of you recall it. Why? Ask why. The ad would begin with a question, why something or other. It would a perfectly legitimate question. And then the response was, why? Ask why. Why is the most profound question you can ask. And the purpose of the ad campaign was to say, it's stupid to look for reasons. Why ask why? There are no reasons. It doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. So why ask why? Movies, music, painting, all ways of distracting ourselves, all ways of avoiding thought,